Do you love yourself? Does that apply to men? I've never even thought about that concept. All I need is you. All they need is us. That is enough.
And then this baby comes along and I'm picking it up in this terrible banged up car. Felt overwhelming shame. Like, who am I to be a father to this child? I don't have the things that's needed to raise a happy, healthy child.
He wasn't talking to friends or family. I was like the only one that knew. This was over 8 years ago. We weren't talking about these mental health and anxiety and depression.
I was sitting in it like a victim and just repeating those negative patterns, but also not willing to take the feedback and make the changes.
Why it felt so hard is Adam was rejecting where he was. In order to help him move towards wanting to be open to taking a step, I had to first accept. And I think that shocked him, that I could still love him. And I remember having a conversation with him during this time and just asking questions with curiosity, getting curious instead of getting like frustrated, creating that safe space where he could share with me. And I wouldn't try to fix, I wouldn't try to judge, I wouldn't give a solution. I would just listen and validate his experience. So unfulfilled, I hear from men all the time, I feel like I'm just the bank account, or I'm just here to pay the bills and no other value that I have.
My response basically highlighted the fact that I was looking for a mother figure and not someone to take care of as a man.
Yeah.
So it was a very different response. I was responding as a boy.
The biggest thing of the personal development journey is there's going to be grief along the way when you realise that I know that it wasn't all sunshine and roses and it wasn't all going perfectly. A lot of the time when people create something, it's created from discomfort and it's created by usually a massive explosion and a gap in where you needed help. So before you were the coaches and running the retreats for people who are at breaking point with their relationship, before you were the people that you are now, Adam, I'd love to kind of know a little bit about yourself in who Adam was before now. 6 years ago, 10 years ago, who you were, what were the pivotal moments that shaped Adam?
Yeah, well, I was having a really hard time in our marriage. So we had a great relationship. We got together when we were really young. We were in primary school when we met. No, high school. High school, sorry. We're high school.
So high school sweetheart.
High school sweethearts.
Beautiful.
And everything was great. I mean, without kids, everything was pretty smooth. And we had some amazing travel, did some amazing things. And it was easy for the trauma not to show up because there wasn't the external triggers to bring it up. But once we had one child, it started to show up, then two children, and it really came to the surface. I had a lot of mental health challenges, and having a second child really brought that up for me, just feeling completely stretched. And then it just escalated from there. We were having more and more arguments. Aston wasn't feeling supported. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was doing everything I possibly could do, but it just wasn't enough. And so we're at that breaking point. It was that breaking point that really birthed the work we now do today.
Yeah.
And so great, like being a man in the world who is so self-aware to look back at that. It's such a gift to be that, men and women. There is, women have a tendency to have a conversation with each other. So it is a rarity. There's more people who are able to do that. But having that self-awareness and not being at the point where you broke and left is really unique. So I'm excited to hear more about that. And then, so Aston, who were you before you met Adam? Like I thought we'd be talking about how you met in your 20s and, like maybe then.
Actually, yeah, we met in high school. I didn't know who Adam was. So my sister was actually dating his brother, and I think that's how he came to know me. We were actually telling our kids this story in the car the other day up on the way up, which was really beautiful. And so I didn't know who he was, but he knew who I was. And he literally, you're not going to believe this, but one day our classrooms are across from each other, and at those classrooms like had a wall, but then like a clear door that you could see through. And I'm like doing my work, like I was a grade A student, really put my head down. I didn't like school, but I just wanted to get out, just get it done and get out, And so I'm doing my work, and then I look up, and through this glass I could see this boy like with this massive smile on his face and like looking at me. I actually looked behind me because I was like, who?
Total creep.
I was like,
you got to get your creep on in high school, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? And then I looked back and he's still looking at me, and I was like, me? And he was like still smiling. I was like, okay. And I remember thinking, wow, like, who is this guy? Like, he really seems like he wants to meet me. And then I think the next day, in the afternoon after school, like, my sister was like, oh, Adam's here to see you. He's at the door. And I was like, who's Adam? I don't know who you're talking about. And she was like, it's Daniel's, it's his brother, you know? And I was like, oh, why is he here? And she's like, he wants to meet you. And pretty much I went to the door. I remember peeking through the front door, like, just having another look, being like, do I want to go out there? And I was like, oh, he's really handsome. He's really good looking. And so I went out and, yeah, we met each other and we just talked. Like, we just talked and talked and talked. And I remember saying that to him, that I just couldn't believe that he was willing to listen to me. That is probably the first thing that made me, you know, he was physically attractive, definitely. But then that he actually wanted to listen to me and get to know me and just talk to me. I found that really attractive. And then we just kind of went from there, didn't we? We just kept meeting up and talking. We'd go to the beach. I'd get sunburnt. We both would, because we'd just lay on the beach talking all day. So we'd come back looking like lobsters. We didn't even kiss for like 3 months. This was a very different relationship.
Important.
Yeah, this was a different relationship. Even at that stage, I'd had several boyfriends before, but I always felt like a bit of a trophy. And it would start and end pretty fast. And it was different with Adam. He was different. He seemed to want to get to know me as a person. He was interested in me. And we still laugh about the first time we kissed, like how intense it was, because all the build up and
the breathing.
Breathing, the sweat,
sweating,
everything. We remember where we were when we did it, everything.
The eyes wide.
And it was just this like life-changing moment, wasn't it? It didn't disappoint. It was like 10 times better than we ever could have imagined, waiting that period of time. And then we just spent every moment together from then, didn't we? We just never wanted to be apart. And but obviously we also were going through puberty together. So that was interesting. You know, that was wild. Like we definitely had challenges along the way. And we did break up for a 6-month period to make sure we had really checked if the grass was greener, because we both felt that it was pretty serious. At this point, Adam had already written a goal list that he was going to marry me, I think in 10 years, I think he wrote down. I also couldn't believe that about him. I was like, you're already thinking about like 10 years from now who you're going to marry? I remember feeling like, God, that feels so good to be chosen like that. But
as a teenager.
Definitely.
That would be so healing. So can I ask then, that is unique. Like, so what was your upbringing? Where did that come from? Who shaped you into that man, or what shaped you into that man? Because that is a unique kind of thought process, and even the listening, the conversation, the choosing, you know, all of that.
It's really interesting. I've never really thought about it like that, to be honest. I don't know where that came from. I just knew when I saw Aston in that moment through the classroom window, I just knew that was for me. That was my person.
I'm going to cry.
I don't know how to describe it. It was just that feeling you get when you know something is 100% for you.
Yeah.
And I was going to do whatever I needed to do to make sure that she was mine.
Yeah.
And so you did. I did, but I didn't know how. I was shit scared. I was so scared at that time of how. Because I felt like she was way out of my league. Even though I was older by a year, I felt like she was way out of my league. And I didn't have the confidence, the self-confidence at that point.
Yeah.
I was a very shy kid.
Yeah.
Didn't speak a lot. Didn't have many girlfriends beforehand, and so I was super scared.
Yeah,
but I remember finding that actually attractive and feeling like that was what confidence really is. I knew he was nervous, but he did it anyway. And to me, that's courage.
Yeah,
like, I don't want confidence. I want courage. You know, confidence can be a bit cocky. There, sometimes not. Courage is different. Like, that comes from a much deeper place, and I think I had more respect for that. And I didn't think I was out of his league. I remember his mates saying to him, because he told me, oh, my mates have said I'm out of your league. And I said to him, what league am I in? I'm not even aware of what you're talking about. And I think that as well for Adam was like, like maybe, you know, all women aren't what they appear. Like, I remember him always saying to me, you're so different to other girls that I've met, because I didn't put myself on that pedestal. I didn't think I was anything. Like I said, I was the straight A student. So sometimes I thought I was the nerd. So I didn't think older boys would be interested in me. Like, it's so interesting how those labels at school, people can try and put you in boxes when I didn't think I really fit in anywhere.
Yeah. And so what shaped you into being like the person that you were, your upbringing, or what were the relationships that you were modelled, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I'm one of 5 and I'm the middle child. So I see lots of relationships. And from a very young age, I've really valued people and relationships. And I just think that's how I've always been. My parents are still together. They've been together all their life and they met really young. And I remember them sharing those stories with me when I was younger. And it did inspire me, but they were also really honest about the challenges. So they never sugarcoated anything. Being one of 5, there's 4 girls, 1 boy, like there was always something going on. In a big family, there's always something going on, and they never sugarcoated things. They always, were honest and truthful about things, but they always, brought us up that family is really important, that people are really important, and to value that really above everything.
100%.
And I think having those core values really helped me with relationships, but also I think I honestly just think it's part of my soul's work is around relationships, because just from such a young age I've had a lot of empathy, compassion, been able to, like, it's so hilarious. Every year at school I'd win the most conscientious and considerate student because not because I wanted the award, because I really do care about people.
Yeah.
And from a young age I've just had that in me that I'd rather, be vulnerable with somebody and help them than pretend I'm perfect and okay and make them feel alone and isolated. Like I've just always wanted people to feel
I feel
that,
you there. I 100%
like
hear you.
I don't mind throwing myself under the bus
Yeah.
if you know that you're not the only person going through this,
The vulnerability, because that's and the work that you're doing now is the biggest reward, is like, hey, we've been imperfect. We've been far from perfect. This is our experience and we've recovered from it. We're on the other side. And for people, I think that's the biggest thing that I've definitely learned is sometimes, I don't know if you get this, sometimes I share too much and I go and I can see the shift in people where you were on a pedestal, they almost take you not just off the pedestal, but then they start to give you advice.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever had that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no, I figured it out. Like I got to the other side, I was sharing with you.
Yes.
It's my little ego sneaking and being like, no, I got this. But I'm the same where I'm like, here, let me share with you an experience. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about what you guys are doing is that you're willing to bear it all on the table and say, hey. So you've gone from this relationship where it seemed not perfect because you said there was stuff going on, puberty, holy
Really hard.
crap, in a room full of four other girls and your mum, that was happening, and then you're going through puberty where it's challenging for both of you. I saw on a post that you did then, you got married, you may have moved and you had babies. You chuck all of that in there and it can be a recipe for disaster if you're not communicating or you haven't kind of prepared for those things. I can imagine it didn't happen in a week or 2 weeks. What was the succession of, where it went from that relationship to you could see where there was turbulence or challenges that were arising for both of you? Or maybe you couldn't see. Maybe what was the moments where you actually take us back to where you couldn't see?
I could absolutely see.
I couldn't see.
Yeah. So you'll get both sides. And we do talk about this at our retreats because it's really common. Everyone thinks that to work on your relationship, you both need to be willing. And yes, in an ideal world, but let's just be real. No one is usually at exactly the same point on their journey. No one. So it's unrealistic to have that expectation. And I actually think that expectation means so many people don't start doing the work. And I think that's really sad. So we really like to be honest about that Adam was completely unaware at this point. He was in survival. Like he was struggling with anxiety, depression. He wasn't happy in his work. He had masculine shame. Like he didn't think he was ready or good enough to be a father. So his nervous system was in survival. So he was not going to be creative and aware at that point. I'd been doing this work since I was about 16. My mum had bookshelves full of Wayne Dyer and all these incredible spiritual teachers teachers and psychology and mindset, and I'd been reading those books pretty much since I was 16. You know, I went to her one day and was like, you know, how do you navigate life, Mum? Like, and she just always had these books, you know, and by her bed. And I now have books by my bed, like my mum did. And I remember her saying, like, go to my bookshelf. I go to the books and they always help me. And she said, like, choose one that you're drawn to and it will have something for what you're going through right now. And so I started doing that at like 16, and I was just reading all these books, and I remember feeling like this deep sense of awareness, or the real education that I wasn't getting from school, which I really valued, which was like
100%.
emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence,
Relationships.
relationships,
They're the foundation
everything.
of life, and we just
Everything.
don't get it.
We don't get it unless you go and look for it. You don't
Yeah.
get it. So I was all in that world from quite a young age, really seeking the answers. So when we had my first child, our son, I knew Adam was not in a good place, but I actually knew what he needed at the time was for me to support him. And whilst that was not what I would have chosen for my initiation into motherhood, I use the word initiation because I realized I really believe that's what it is. So I chose not to be a victim, not to feel sorry for myself, and to see that this is my initiation. Like, I'm being put in this pressure cooker with all these challenges to rise to this occasion. And that's what I did. And I remember Adam feeling like ashamed about things and just reassuring him that he was enough and saying to him, all I need is you, all they need is us. Like, that is enough. And I remember just really trying to support him and like cushion him in so much love and support, because he also at that time, like, you know, this was over 8 years ago, we weren't talking about the mental health and anxiety and depression so openly. So I was like the only one that knew. He wasn't talking to friends or family or
Suffer in
you know.
silence, keep it quiet, there's
Yeah.
shame, don't be so weak. Were you in FIFO while you were
Then no.
No, I
Then
out of
wasn't. I'd
FIFO
already
then.
left FIFO at that stage.
Okay, so
I did
you'd
do
been
FIFO
in-
for a few years,
Yeah,
but
okay.
at that stage I was back working in Perth, and yeah, it was I just didn't have the awareness.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of what was going on. I knew I didn't feel good, but I didn't know what I needed to do to move through it.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools, the support, the skills. Well, I had
Yeah.
some support, amazing support, but I didn't have the skills and tools.
Well, I feel like it's hard when you say you had support from your partner. I can imagine that just the way that being human works is you've just welcomed in a new baby.
Yeah.
It's hard to receive as a human being in general.
Yeah.
It's definitely harder to receive, I think, as a man when you've been conditioned to be a provider and all of this stuff is happening. Can you talk us through, like, you know, into a little bit of depth on, I know you weren't aware, but what was it like for you when you were suffering with that? What were the days like, and do you remember like what was going through your mind in those times?
Yeah, I do. I had a lot of shame around so many areas, and I speak to a lot of men now who have the same sort of patterns going on, where I wasn't performing financially, my health was terrible, I didn't enjoy my career, my business was barely surviving at the time, and our relationship felt like a struggle. So I didn't feel like I had the qualities to be a great father. And then this baby comes along, and I'm picking it up in this terrible banged up car, and I just felt overwhelming shame. Like, who am I to be a father to this child? I don't have the things that's needed to raise a happy, healthy child. And so it was just constantly beating myself up.
Yeah.
Like, looking back now, I was just very hard on myself.
Yeah.
But also not willing to take the feedback and make the changes. I was sitting in it like a victim and just repeating those negative patterns in my mind. That self-talk was just on repeat, day in, day out.
And you speak about victim, you speak about shame. I can imagine that those words probably weren't a part of your vocabulary then.
No.
And, you know, that's the growth that we get to have and we get to witness. And like, I'm teary because it's such a gift for people to, I am teary, I'm going to have to catch my breath, is that it's such a gift that you guys have gone through the stuff to be able to get to this point, because even people listening to that now, it's a ripple effect, you know, like
100%.
the fact that you went through that toughness and came out the other side through that support, it's going to make everybody cry.
Yeah.
Is such a gift. And it's easier to fall into the victim mindset. It's easier to blame you, to blame yourself. It's harder to fully step into what the fuck is going on. I need
Yeah.
to make a change. What was the point that got you? Because your partner, and I know that people are listening, might be in this position, have been in this position, and they're still going through the toughness. Having your partner telling you, I want to help you, you're struggling, I need to give you these things. It's potentially the last thing you want to hear, because you're like, I want to fucking help myself. And so what was it that shifted you around when you were going through those moments and you felt that shame and that guilt and like you weren't a good father?
Well, I'd say, first of all, it didn't happen overnight. It definitely didn't happen quickly.
Yeah.
And I prolonged it a lot longer than what it needed to be, go on for. I think it probably ended up going on for at least a couple of years. I mean, it was a pattern I learned in childhood, so it was going on for a long, long time. It just didn't come to the surface until children were on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the turning point was probably after years of Aston not only supporting me lovingly, but also encouraging me to look at these things, get support, get a coach, read this book, which, by the way, for men, that can actually feel like criticism, and men can close off from that because we want to forge our own path. We want to make the decision and actually take the action and then get the feedback, not be told by somebody else like, you're broken, you need to read this book.
Yeah.
Because that's how we take it.
Yeah.
It's a real balance.
It's a tough balance.
It's an art. That's why I said in the beginning, I just focused on support.
Yeah.
How can I emotionally let him know I accept him? Like, if anyone's listening, I feel like that was my first step. I just needed him to know that I accepted him. I accepted him in this mess. Because if I can accept him in it, it becomes easier for him to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas why it felt so hard is Adam was rejecting where he was.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was obvious because you could see him being so hard on himself and beating himself up. And, but it's in order to help him move towards wanting to be open to taking a step, I had to first accept.
Mm-hmm.
And when you accept, you can then, I could then love him in this mess. And I think that shocked him, that I could still love him in this mess. And I remember having a conversation with him during this time and just asking questions with curiosity, getting curious instead of getting like frustrated. Although, on the surface, it made total sense for me to be frustrated. I tried really hard to process my feelings and stay curious. Like, help me understand what's going on for you, and creating that safe space where he could share with me, and I wouldn't try to fix, I wouldn't try to judge, I wouldn't give a solution. I would just listen and validate his experience. And I think over time that built safety in his nervous system, that he could share with me and that I wasn't going to break down or use it against him. And then once I could see that he was getting that little bit stronger, I was able to ask him more deeper questions like, I started with like, are you happy in yourself right now? Do you make yourself happy? And at the time the answer was no. And I was okay with that. And I said, well, that kind of makes sense. It's a bit of a relief for me that I now know that this is what's going on for you. Do you love yourself? And I remember the first time I asked Adam that, he said to me, does that apply to men? I've never even thought about that concept. And I said, yeah, honey, that definitely applies to you. That applies to every human being.
Yeah.
And then I think that opened up something different in him, and he realized, God, I don't love myself. I haven't been loving myself. And then from that place, it was like there was a bit more of an opening. And then we could start to, I still let him guide where that went, but I let him know, like, I'm here. And I will gently be calling you forth because I do believe in you. And it is that balance between giving them the support they need whilst gently calling them forth, and it is like a challenge, but it's not like Adam said, it's not telling them what to do. It's not using the word should. It's not like putting more shame on what they already have. And this does require you to have a lot of emotional intelligence. So I think, thank God, I had started doing this work so much earlier, because if I hadn't have read all those books, understood my emotions, learned how to process them, I don't think we would still be together, because it really is quite a big thing to hold. Like, there's a lot of emotions involved. And I think it's also important for the partner not to become like, to feel like they have to hold the emotional weight and burden of, and the mental load of the life the kids
Yeah.
I didn't want to become Adam's therapist.
Yeah.
So it was really important in that I also was processing my own emotions and not abandoning myself or neglecting my needs. And so taking care of myself was a big part of that. And I didn't feel selfish in that. I knew that if I took care of myself, my mental health, my physical health, looked after myself, it would actually mean I could help him. And it actually ended up inspiring him so that he knew he could do the same.
That's the thing is, like, in what you're speaking about, you said calling him forward and not calling him out and not making him feel more ashamed. And when people want to change, they have to want to change.
100%.
So it's like planting little seeds of love still. In what you're saying, I think what I see in a lot of relationships up in mining, and because it's, there's the isolation that people are living two completely different lives. One's up there sacrificing being away from family. One's at home sacrificing having the person away, going through. So like you said, both of you are going through things. Yeah. Neither of you is wrong or right. Neither of you is more harder than the other. But something that sticks out to me is that you were choosing each other always.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that I've learned as a single person is the foundation of a relationship is to choose someone, and regardless of the hard, you choose each other.
Well, I actually think, and I learned this from my own parents, is what defines you is how you show up in the hard times. Anyone can show up on a good day. Yeah. It's easy. And I think today couples are just living for those good days and the easy days. And they're not showing up in the hard times. And that is where your relationship is tested, it's built. That's where it really matters. And if you don't show up where it matters, then the good times will dissolve. They won't last. And our relationship is amazing now. We still have challenges. Like, do not convince yourself that you're going to get to some point in the future where there won't be challenges,
We've arrived. That's
it. Doesn't
There's
happen.
no more problems. Because also
it doesn't happen.
Humans, you'd get bored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were having this conversation before, and I want to touch on what we were speaking about before around the boring when you've had challenges before. You were high school sweethearts, so you didn't necessarily have the relationships that shaped your thought of what relationships were and having to heal through that. However, you had the other things. But I do want to touch on something that you said about being a father. And I know that so many people, I hear that and have been lucky enough to be able to have a few people open up in when I've been facilitating and admit I'm shitting myself being a father. There was one particular time when we had the conversation and I said, what are the things that people grieve, or what are the things that you feel sad about, or what are the things that scare you? And somebody said, being a dad. And it was this older guy who knew that somebody needed to hear it. And it meant this younger guy went, I didn't want to be a dad. I told my partner, get rid of it. We're having an abortion. I don't want to be it, because he was scared, and he was able to admit that he was absolutely shitting himself. He was, I think, 8 months into that where they were going to break up because kids are tough, relationships are tough, and he was able to admit that. And there's also been moments before when guys have talked about that shame. Can you speak into that, and can you speak into, maybe from retreats on there's shame, I think, for a lot of people, regardless of what's going on, but that the parental shame, the father shame, the providership, I know there's so much more to go into with that. Go ham, share with us how you felt, what you hear from other people. And
I think it's that we don't have enough spaces where we talk about this in society now. We used to have initiations. We used to have a tribe of elders who would support us through that next stage, and we'd get the wisdom, we'd learn what it's going to be like, the truth. But I think now we're just missing that. And then new dads are just wondering, well, what does that mean? Who am I now? They're asking those questions, but they've got no answers. And it's meant to be hard. It's never going to be easy. But I think if you've got someone there who can at least guide you and give you some pointers, it definitely makes it a lot easier. So I think no one talks about the fact that it's a death and a birth. The old you's dying. It's a massive life transition. And so there's a part of you that is going to die. That the single version of you that went out and partied and had all the freedom to do whatever the hell you wanted, that's going to die. Or part of that's going to die. And you have to accept that if you want to be at peace as a father. And I think I waited way too long to accept that.
Yeah.
I was trying to hold on to it whilst trying to work out who I was becoming. If I would have just made a decision that to let go and had some guidance as to what this new me was going to look like, I think it would have been a lot easier. So there was a lot of shame for a long time around so many things. But I think the big one for men in today's world, because gender roles have shifted so much too, is the shame around not being able to provide and fit that really old, outdated model of what a masculine provider is. The man who goes to work, brings home plenty of money, his wife doesn't need to work, and so everything's great, and he's the hero. He's celebrated and patted on the back. And but I think that's a broken model. If you work in FIFO, it can still work in today's world, and if you're a business owner and you make really good money, it can still work. But for the majority of people in today's world, it doesn't work. You've got the man working and the woman working, and it needs to be that way because of the way things are. But I think people have yet to adopt a mindset to allow themselves to live in those roles happily and at peace. They're still fighting each other. The man wants to be the provider, but he doesn't have the environment to be able to do it. In most cases, and so there's shame around that. We
talk about this. We noticed for us, the purpose of marriage and relationship has changed and evolved, but our blueprint hasn't. So even when we became parents, like my parents had their own business, my dad worked, my mum stayed at home. So I was fighting for that blueprint because that's what I grew up with, not consciously. This is unconscious. It was just in my body. Like, I remember when we had our first child thinking, well, I don't really have any expectations of what this is going to look like. But unconsciously I did. And I wasn't aware of them
and
until.
Like, this ain't happening. You're not giving me this. I thought it was going to be.
100%. Until it happened, and it was the complete opposite of that unconscious expectation. It was then in front of my face that, this is wrong because it doesn't match that. But luckily I had the awareness to be able to look at that and go, that's because I'm using that blueprint. And that blueprint isn't working for me. I can fight for that if I want, but I'm going to fail. I'm going to feel like a victim, and I don't want to feel that way. So for me, the answer was to take back my responsibility, and we encourage couples to do this as well, to take back your power and redefine what this blueprint looks like for you now, for your family and your marriage. Like, we teach principles and, tools and things like that to our clients, but we get them to create their own vision. And I actually think we need to stop looking to the world and conditioning for that vision. We need to come back to ourselves and say, what is my definition of success? What is going to work for my family? And for us, we got to a place where definitely after our second child, I said to Adam, I'm a generator, and there was so many ideas and creativity coming through me. Every time I birthed, there was like 10 days before we birthed my son, I was finishing a book. Who does that? Like, when I had my daughter, I was in a personal development program, and all these ideas were coming through me. And I remember sitting down and saying to him, I know the blueprint says I should just be at home with the kids, and I love being a mum, and I know I'm a great mum, and my kids, I have the most beautiful relationship with them. I'm so present with them. They are my everything. And I love my time with them. And I did fall into a pattern after we had our daughter of thinking that I just had to stay home because that's what a good mum does, clean, cook, do all the things. But I was feeling like emotionally burnt out and exhausted because my creativity was stunted. And then I started to resent Adam because he could go to work and he could still have a bit of a life. But then he resented me because I had all the time with the kids. So this is when we then sat down and was like, okay, this is neither of our fault. We have different needs in this season. What are those needs and how can we meet them? And that's where we decided for me to actually start coaching from home to start my business, and for Adam to then work in a job, which meant he could be at home for the breakfast, for the morning and for the evening. For us, that's what success started to look like for our first vision. And then we've continued to build on that. But for us, we really believe in 2025, what's really being asked of us is we are being asked as men and women to let our old identities die, to let the old way die and let this new way be born. And that new way means there's going to be an overlap. Like a lot of women want to be able to create and fulfill their purpose outside of motherhood. You can have both. And I think the only way to have both is to recognize that that's also true for men. There are men who want to provide, but that does not stop at financial or physical of the home. There's emotionally provide. They want to be present and emotionally present with their partner and also with their children. But if you keep living that old blueprint, there's no space or time for them to fulfill that. And I think that's why they're feeling so empty, so unfulfilled. I hear from men all the time, I feel like I'm just the bank account, or I'm just here to pay the bills and there's no other value that I have. And it makes them feel sad and depressed because deep down in their soul, they know they have more value. They know there's more to them than their job and the money they bring in. But we're not really giving them the outlet or the space or the time to explore that. And that's what we really want to be an example of, that we do both. Like, we do this beautiful dance in our relationship, and that's what works for us now. Like, our kids, we broke up with the default parent model. That did not work for us. We tried it for a few years. We were both burnt out. I was losing my hair. I was exhausted. My nervous system was shot. And Adam felt like a failure and felt like nothing he ever did was good enough, even though he was trying so hard. And that's because the default parent model doesn't work. I actually also think the system doesn't support families. The way we live today, we isolate everyone in their own four walls.
Yes,
there's
not
no
a village
support.
anymore.
There's barely even family. Like, we live further away from our families. And so I think it is really about taking our power back and taking responsibility. And what we did is we were like, well, we need to create a modern day village. We need to redefine what success means to us. We need to pay for support. We need to restructure the way we live. Where can we cut things down, and what do we value? Where do we want to put, all of our resources into what we value instead of what we think we should be doing? And then we're both unhappy. We're both resentful. And then we get caught in that trap of thinking it's his fault or her fault. And it doesn't even solve the problem. It's a complete distraction. And I think that's where, taking your power back and taking responsibility can be so empowering in these situations, which can feel really disempowering for both men and women. The way that the world is run and the systems that we live in. So, you can wait for the systems to change, or you can just change your system.
100%,
That's what I fully recommend, doing whatever you can in your power now to make those changes, to make it better for you, for your children. And don't wait for, government systems and things to do it for you, because it's not in their best interest. Like, when we are separated, we are less powerful. And that division and that fear, a lot of systems feed off that. So
divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book.
It's the biggest lie.
Yeah,
We're
when you're
not a fan of it.
confused, when you're
We're not
and
a
it's
fan.
a tactic that gets used. Oh, we could have a whole other podcast on this. But I love so much of what you touched on there, and a question that I had for both of you. You talked about success and the success of parenting and your perception. I want to ask you a question, both of you separately. When you were in that time, and you might not have had self-awareness, but maybe looking back, what was your definition of a successful relationship when things weren't going well? What wasn't it meeting for you, Adam? And then after that, what wasn't it meeting for you, Aston?
I don't think I had one. That's probably the truth. I didn't have a vision for what a healthy, successful relationship was. That was probably the biggest missing piece, which I needed to have. I think that's probably
But you had society's conditioning.
I had conditioning as to what it should be. And I think at the time, if I'm honest, and we identified this years later, that I was actually more looking for like a mother figure.
Yeah.
So I obviously was so attracted to Aston because of who she represented to me as that 15-year-old boy or 14-year-old boy. It was more like a mother figure, someone who was going to love and nurture me. And I think you asked me a question one day. I can't remember what the question was, but I remember saying that my response basically highlighted the fact that I was looking for a mother figure and not someone to take care of as a man.
Yeah.
So it was a very different response. I was responding as a boy rather than a man, and it really brought that to the surface for me.
The question I asked him was, what does love mean to you?
Yeah.
Oh, How old
And
were you when you asked this question?
this conversation came up because when I asked for a divorce, even though we'd had a really rough 2 years, Adam was still shocked. And this surprised me. I didn't expect him to be shocked. And actually, we've shared this with quite a few couples now. And apparently this dynamic is quite common, where one partner is like the writing's on the wall and the other partner would almost say they feel blindsided.
I hear that so much.
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Yes.
It's been happening for the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah. And they don't know what you're talking about. And Adam, 6 years ago would agree. But that was part of his protection as well. And now we understand how it happened and we share this with couples. But I remember being shocked and then saying to him, he said, I thought it was just a stage. And I was like, a stage? Wow. So I think that was part of his conditioning, that he thought that there would be stages in the relationship and this was just one of them. And we would somehow get through it, magically without doing anything about it. But I knew, like with my awareness, this isn't going to go away by itself and it definitely is not going to get easier. It's going to get harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my experience. And so I said to him, okay, this really confuses me that you don't want a divorce and that you're shocked. And I'm like, are we really in the same relationship? Like at this point, we weren't really sleeping in the same room. We weren't talking. We felt like roommates. We were fighting in front of our kids. Like we were trying our best, but we were not proud of the way we were showing up. There was silent treatment. There was criticism, stonewalling, all of the things that show you, this is not going to end well. And he was still like, I thought it was a stage. And I let it like crack me open. And I remember saying to him, okay, I'm confused by that, but it's kind of shocked me and now I'm curious. Maybe it's that we haven't been working on us. It kind of created this opening for me. Maybe that's what's happened here.
Well, kids do that. Not on purpose. They come as a
100%.
gift, but they don't go. I have this joke, who comes up to site to have a bit of a break? And when you go home for those 2 days where you're exhausted, do your kids go, hey, pop your feet up, have a cup of tea, let me, you chill out, relax, have a bit of time together.
Their demands like 10x because you've been away. And you want to fulfill that. And it made me realize maybe we've been distracted and maybe it stopped working because we've stopped working on us. And just that question and that curiosity stopped me from just, reacting from my emotions and just, blowing everything up. And it created enough space for me to then say to Adam, ask him these deeper questions like, what does love mean to you then? And his response was at that time, and I remember him pausing and going and really thinking about it and then going to speak. And he said, I feel a little bit sick in the stomach saying this, but I said, just be honest with me. And he said, okay, to be taken care of. And I remember feeling this sense of relief as this like weight just drained from my body. And I said to him, I'm actually really relieved to hear you say that. And he was like, okay. I said, well, because I've been feeling so exhausted and so depleted and like I can't solve this and I'm trying to do everything and be everything, but you're still not happy. And hearing that just confirmed to me that your definition of love right now is it's a younger part of you. Yeah. And that's why we can't seem to move forward at the moment is a younger part of you is running this. And that's the boy and we need to access the man. And he could even identify it in that moment. He was like, I feel like a boy. And
we're like,
yeah, it was. It was a light bulb moment. Yeah,
it was a huge moment.
And then there was probably initiated a period of probably grief and sadness, grieving the boy, and then getting curious about who the man was. Yeah, and how does he show up? Yeah. How does he speak to his wife? How does he take care of his family?
And so, if you don't mind me asking, was it a lack of a mother figure? Was it the relationship disjointed with your mum, or again, it's completely up to you how far you want to go into that. But could you put your finger on it? Now you've been able to do the work and show up in that and acknowledge that was where it was. Maybe somebody's resonating with that.
Yeah.
What was it?
I think doing a lot of self-reflection and looking back on things, I've got amazing parents and I get along with them really well. I've had to do a lot of healing on the relationship with them. There's not like there was one event that I can put a finger on, but I think it was probably just that lack of secure attachment, lack of needs being validated in certain moments throughout my childhood. And we've seen this with hundreds of couples. It can be lots of little things. It's not normally one major trauma. It's usually lots of little things over a long period of time. And then we have that feeling within us, like it's just not there. Where is it? It's like it's missing. And so that was all it was. It was just that sense of like, I need to feel loved, like I'm not enough as I am. And so I was seeking it externally.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was. It was, not one big thing, just a series of very small things over time that left me feeling like not very secure and safe in myself. And then hence why I attracted a woman who was so safe and secure. And
and I can imagine, did you fall even more in love with her in those moments when she was asking those questions of like, or I know you were going through grief and you were going through a bit of a tough time.
not in the moment.
Not in the moment.
How dare you?
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
I was definitely playing the victim in the drama triangle in those moments. For a long time, I was the victim, and I was very triggered when Aston would ask me those questions, even though she was asking from a loving place.
Yeah.
I can now see, like, whenever she asks me questions now, I can easily recognize it comes from a loving place, and she wants the best in me to show up. But at that time, it was all victim. It was, I had to take very deep breaths, and it would activate that survival response in me.
And I love that you share this because I find it so important. It's really interesting on the Uber ride here, right? And you would get this as well, where people share with you, and I love it. I'm like, tell me more. Like, how can I solve it? I know that when people get to share, they get that load off.
Healing.
It's exactly
So
even
healing.
just that in itself. And ironically, on the way to this podcast today, the guy said, "Oh, what are you up to?" "I'm doing a podcast." "Oh, cool. What is it about?" Mental health and all the things around it, relationship. And then he just started to talk about how he'd gone through a relationship breakup. He was actually asking about my parents, and I'd said that they'd broken up. And he said, "Oh, well, me and my partner are broken up, and we've been broken up for 4 years." And the situation that was happening, and the reason why I say this is because I hear this so much on site in the world at the moment, the custody battles, the kids being used as pawns, the person on the other end going, "I just came out of nowhere, she's using it against me, she's taken all my money, or they've taken all my money, and I don't get to see my kids." I have the acknowledgement of like, there were years that led up to, there were signs that you might not have been able to see, but it's hard because in that moment, validating and being like, and I said to him, "That's shit. I'm really sorry that you're going through that." He'd gone to the police, been taken to the police station, and the daughter had apparently been coaxed that she'd been hit by him and was going through those kind of things. It's really common. I hear that a lot. Do you get couples who are going through those kind of things? Is there two questions? Do you get those couples? What's your advice to them? And do you ever get couples where you're like, "Look, you two, you ain't supposed to be together"?
Yeah. Well, this is why we do our one-day retreats, to try and vet as much as possible. We also like get you to fill out questionnaires, everything. We really try to get to know them, because we really believe the best person to learn from is someone you can relate to. So if our story resonates with them, if they can relate, if they have something similar, then we know we can help them. We know that our tools and our advice and things will help. If it is like we don't work with domestic violence and things like that, if it's things like that, we always refer on.
Totally.
Sometimes counsellors will ask their clients to come to our retreat because we do like somatic healing, breath work, to help them move some of the stuff through the emotional body. Because like what you're saying, this is the problem. They're in their emotional body and they're in their pain body. And you are not going to make good decisions for yourself, let alone your children, in that state. So whenever we have couples that are, and actually when we work with couples for 12 months, we're probably the reason so many of them don't get divorced, because if they come up against an issue, and we work with FIFO couples and things like that, and if they're apart and they start to have negative thoughts and they're spiraling down, they can reach out to us and we can support them separately to get them back on track. And that's part of what we do, and why we work with them for 12 months after the retreat, because it is a process of clearing out that emotional body and then getting them to a place where they can see each other's perspective and make clear decisions. From an emotional space, you're not going to make a clear decision. So the advice we always give is start the healing. absolutely start the healing, because
individually.
even start individually. And when couples come into Save My Marriage School, we start individually. So they have to go on a self-awareness journey. And this is the hardest part for them. And a lot of them have never done it before. And we hold their hand and we make it as easy as possible.
And there's safety in being together. Even though you don't
Yes.
like each other, even though you're not getting along, there's safety in that.
Yes, in that.
So I can imagine that
But
be vulnerable.
It has really made us realize so many people are not doing the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
People think it's a luxury or it's a like at the end of my life. And that is just simply not true. Like, I honestly believe the real work we are here to do is the inner work, is to come back here to remember that stuff and to heal through it. We're getting so distracted with our jobs and what we're like buying and materialism and creating, and it's all a distraction. And, you know, AI is now going to take that away. And my biggest fear is so many people have not been doing the inner work. All the excuses are being taken away. You will no longer be busy. You're going to be left with yourself. You are going to have to do that inner work that you have been avoiding. And you're going to see that that was the work all along. And when you do the inner work, the outer world will reflect it, because you don't get what you want, you get who you are. So even in these difficult relationships, and this is what I had to do, speaking from experience with Adam, even though I was going through this hard time with him, I chose to ask myself, who am I being in this moment that is attracting this situation? What do I need to heal in me that is a match for this? Because I don't want to be a match for this. So I think so many times couples get caught in that, like, the drama triangle. One of them's a victim, one of them's a villain in this situation, and nobody can win. When you tell the story like that, and you need to catch your stories, the story of your relationship matters. Like, if you tell a story like that, there is not going to be any winners. And the biggest loser in that is the child. And it gets us emotional because that is part of our mission. You know, I know parenting is hard. I know relationships are hard, but we have got to do better. Like, we're not perfect, but we choose to break those generational cycles, because our kids deserve better, you know, and we had that moment where we were like, we don't get to tell our kids that they can have whatever they want and they can follow their dreams and do all these amazing things if we're standing here not doing the inner work, not following our dreams, not being the best versions of ourselves, and treating each other in this way. You know, that I think that really is what parenting is. And a lot of people don't realize that when you have a child, you're not just signing up to parent them, you're signing up to reparent yourself so that you break those generational cycles. And like Adam said, there'll be a death of you and a rebirth of you.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is going to be the reparenting process. No matter how good your upbringing was or your parents were, it's actually not about that. It's that times have changed and we are meant to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that are coming through now, they are more evolved. So as parents, we need to evolve to be able to meet them at that level. So, you know, for this couple, you know, they need to start doing the inner work. And if you cannot do it for yourself, do it for your children. And, you know, Adam was terrified of doing this work. When I asked him, you know, I said to him, the next question I asked him was like, how do you feel about going within and doing this inner work? And he shared with me that it was dark. It was scary. It was lonely. It means I'm not good enough. It means I'm a failure. And when he shared that with me, all of a sudden, my judgment of him just completely dropped. And I said to him, I totally understand now why you've been resisting doing the inner work and actually looking at this stuff and taking responsibility. I totally get it. If I had that story and that belief about awareness and doing the inner work, I wouldn't want to do it either.
Mm-hmm.
And he really felt validated in that. And then he said to me, well, what do you believe about going within and doing the inner work? And I said, well, to me, it means coming home. It means I'm safe with me. I know exactly who I am. I'm always welcome with me. I want to go into myself all of the time because that's the place I feel the safest, the most loved. It's where the truth lives. It's where I know I can be me and I feel free. And I remember sharing that with him and he got tears in his eyes and he looked at me and he said to me, I want to go there. He's
Yeah.
like, I want to go there.
Yeah.
He goes, no wonder you're so deep. He's like, no wonder
Yeah.
you're always going within and you're so reflective and you're always looking for lessons. And he's like, you must want to spend so much time there. I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, how can I do that? I said, well, adopt my belief. You can change the story. I said to him, tell a different story and you will experience something different when you look within. And I think that moment shifted. I remember just seeing, you know, when you see someone have a breakthrough or a
Yeah.
transformation, and I saw that in him. I saw something shift and open, and pretty much from that moment, I knew we would be able to get through it because I could see a safety in him, a trust in him, and this moment of him taking his power back, that he could actually influence the outside world, that he could change this situation by having the courage to look within and to build that relationship with himself.
Yeah.
And I honestly felt excited for him
Yeah.
because I think the moment that you realize when you build that level of relationship with yourself, all your relationships follow the relationship you have with yourself. How you relate to yourself is how you relate to others. So I had this moment of like, I know everything's going to be okay because he can now go on this journey of rebuilding his relationship with himself. And I just know without a doubt in my mind that that's going to have a positive impact on me, our children, and the relationship I want him to be able to have with them, his family, you know, his friends. Like I just knew it would have that ripple effect. And it absolutely did. It was just, I mean, it's one thing going through your own journey. It's the most amazing thing, you know, your spiritual journey or your personal development, watching somebody you love go on that journey. Honestly, like I remember saying to you so many times, didn't I, that witnessing his journey was almost better than going on my own because I knew what he'd been through. I cared so much about him and I knew how much courage it took him to go on this journey.
And you can't force somebody to do that.
No.
It's a fully, you have to choose to do that.
You can invite. It's an invitation.
Yeah. And like you said.
That's what that was. It was an invitation. And he decided to take it, which was just, I'm so grateful for.
And we all are. Like, amen to that. Speaking on that, from the point of view of somebody who, you know, for Aston, you've been going through that journey of self-awareness. You're able to reflect on yourself. I can imagine there would have been times when you were on the journey, you wanted to give up and you were like, fuck it all, burn it all down. Yeah. Don't want to put words in your mouth or anything like that. I say it because I've been on a journey myself. Yep. You fight it. When were those moments? Like, what was it that got in your way and what was it that made you or helped you get through it that wasn't necessarily Aston's support but an internal job?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think where it really began was when you asked me, would you want your daughter to be married to a man like you? And that came just after she was born, so about 6 years ago. And that hit me really hard because the honest truth was no. No fucking way. No way. At that time, like every area of my life was shit. And I was like, I had to take stock. I had to be honest. But for so long, I've been avoiding that truth. I'd been just like pretending like I was doing way better than what I actually was. But the truth was every single area I was not happy with. Yeah. My goals were way beyond where I was. I wasn't even making progress. So that honesty, and I think a lot of men go wrong here. I can't really speak for women, but I know a lot of men go wrong here. They're not willing to be completely honest about where they are because it's shit. But you can't move forward if you don't get honest about where you are. So radical honesty. And then it was still hard. Like it's still hard to move forward once you're honest, but at least then you've got a starting point and you can start to make some changes. So from that point, I could actually go, okay, well, what do I actually want? And I just started to make small changes. And it just started in every area, you know, small changes with my health, small changes with my career, small changes in our relationship, showing up differently, learning some new things. I got a coach because I needed that external, someone to reflect things back that I couldn't see. There was a lot of blind spots. We all have them and you just need to get someone else. And sometimes it's not your partner because there's so much emotion there. And a lot of the time when you're having conflict, you're not in your logical mind. You're going into survival, you're defending yourself and you're going into another part of your brain. So you can't think logically and you can't make progress. So if that's you, I'd say get support outside. That could be a coach, it might be a book, but sometimes you need someone to reflect things back. And that was really helpful for me, just some new tools, some new ways of looking at things. and then just taking some new action, doing things differently to how I'd been doing them, which was uncomfortable. And there was moments of frustration. There was moments of doubt, like, why the fuck do I have to do this? Like wanting to blame Aston all the time, still wanting to go back to that old pattern of like pointing the finger and saying it's all her. If she would just change, this would all be fine. If she stopped criticizing me, telling me I wasn't enough, telling me I needed to read these 10 books and do all these courses, if she just stopped doing all of that, our relationship would be perfectly fine, which was complete bullshit in hindsight.
But a lot of partners do that.
But a lot of us fall
Yeah.
into that trap at times, and we want to blame everybody else.
Yeah.
I think that's human. That's
Yeah, it
100%
is.
human.
Yeah.
And it's safe to look outwardly. Like you said, the biggest thing of the personal development journey is there's going to be grief along the way when you realise that nobody's actually been in the way.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to save you. Everything, the reason why you're at where you're at is because of yourself. And that's a shit reality.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. But
Yeah,
the
it
sooner
sucks.
you can swallow that pill, the sooner you can get on with it. And it was interesting at that time, I wasn't actually saying to him, you're not enough. But because of his internal story, anything I brought to him, that's what he heard. And I think this is what partners sometimes don't understand and why they think it's a communication problem. It's not necessarily what you're saying, it's also what's underneath.
Yeah.
Like what's in their body? What state are they in? Like Adam was in like freeze, and so he wasn't in a space where he could take on new information or creative ideas or challenge. He was in a state of survival. He was just trying to function. So, I think it's helpful for couples to learn that there's so much more to communication than what you speak. Actually, the words you speak is the smallest part of communication. The biggest part is what's happening in your nervous system. Is there emotional safety in your body, in the relationship, like between you? Are you regulated? What's the story and the narrative that you're telling? That's why, we couldn't resolve things because Adam had this narrative for a long time, this story he was telling that he just shared, that Aston is the problem. If she just changed, everything would be fine. I heard this narrative so many times from Adam that I literally decided to believe him. And this might sound strange, but instead of fighting him, I literally just said, maybe you're right. Maybe it's all me. Maybe I am wrong. Not as a victim, but as taking responsibility.
Let's try
And
that.
I literally was
Yeah.
like, I've tried the other way and it hasn't worked. So I'm going to take 100% responsibility for this. And every time I share this, couples are like, oh no, relationships are 50-50. That is the biggest lie. There is nothing in life that works like that. Nothing. If you want to get your result, you better be willing to take 100% responsibility. And that's the conversation I had with myself. I remember looking in the mirror and going, do I want this to get 20% better or 50% better or 100% better? I was like, 100% better. Well then, Aston, you better be willing to take 100% responsibility because that's the only way you have control of getting the outcome you want. So that's what I did. I just took responsibility and I actually doubled down on my self-awareness. I got a new coach. I got a coach that would pull out different blind spots. I deepened my relationship to the feminine. I learned even deeper about communication and connection and that the art of creating emotional safety. I asked myself the tough question of who do I need to be? If I'm talking about this dream relationship that I want in the future, when this marriage is over, the better marriage with the better man,
The greener.
the greener grass. Well, let's talk about the greener grass. Why do I think over there I'm going to be something different to what I am here if this is what I am right now? So I just said to myself, well, you need to be that woman over there now. Bring her into the now. How does she think? How does she process her feelings? How does she treat her husband? How does she love her children? Be that. And I started to embody her and really deepen my relationship with the embodiment of that woman. And then I showed up as her in our marriage, not for him, but for me and for my children, because I knew that whatever way this went, it was going to equal growth. We were either going to grow together or we were going to grow separately in different directions, but it was going to be positive. There was no way I was letting my family break apart and then on top of that have all this unhealed wounds and triggers and us forgetting what this is really about and turning on each other. So that meant I had to do that work and go first. So I remember saying to Adam, I want to be the best mum. wife and woman I can be and be the truest version of myself. And I've realized through this process that I'm not being that. But I need help to be that. So I'm going to go on this journey. I'm going to work with these coaches. I'm going to do all of this work on myself to learn this because I don't know how to do it right now. If I did, I would have already done it. And I said, I would love to invite you on the journey with me, but there is no pressure. I said to him, I want you to make this decision for you. I've made my decision and this is what I'm going to do. And I remember him saying to me, that he was just so inspired that even though I was in a situation where I wasn't getting my needs met and I wasn't happy, I'd questioned a divorce, he was shocked, still thought I was the problem. I was still willing to take responsibility and ask how I could be a better wife, a better woman, and a better mother. And he said, I am so inspired by this vision of being the truest version of you. And he said, I want to do that, but I'm just not there yet. And, that obviously wasn't the answer that I wanted, but I was able to meet him in that and respect him and say, that's okay. I'm still going to go on this journey anyway. And there's still an opportunity to join me later down the track. And so that's what I did. And then I would literally show up every day as that woman, when he would try and point the finger at me and blame me and get defensive and try and turn around and say, well, you're attacking and criticizing me. He literally had to stop his words. I remember so many moments in the kitchen where he would go to do that and I would stop and I would take a deep breath and I was regulating my nervous system and he would go, what are you doing? You're not doing what you usually do. Like I'm defending myself and I'm trying to stay in that
Fight me.
pattern.
Get
But
in
you're
there.
not fighting me.
Yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, I'm not fighting you anymore. I'm breaking the pattern and I'm just going to breathe through it. And I said to him, I'm not going to lie, this is really awkward. My pattern in my body is to fight you, but I'm breathing through it and I'm asking a deeper part of myself, can I sit in this with him without trying to fight him? And the deeper part of me said, yes. My brain was like, what are you doing? Like, you cannot accept this. Do not tolerate this. Like, my brain was going nuts, but I was able to, drop into my heart and my heart could expand and I could be in that space with him, still support myself whilst being, kind and respectful to him. And it just shocked him. I remember him saying after a few months of that happening, he turned around to me and he said, what are you doing? Like, I want to know what you're doing now because I've come to this point where I've realized that I'm the problem because I now can't keep blaming you.
Yeah.
You're not criticizing me. You're not attacking me.
Was that frustrating?
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, at the time it was really frustrating, yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard to admit that, but it made it very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was obvious that I had work to do and so that pushed me on my journey to go and start that work.
And I love how you speak about, because we talk about being a strong woman, right? Yeah. And being a strong woman in a relationship. It's like the duality or the two options. There's multiple in between. We know it's not just simple as one or two, but there's the, somebody who's going to fight for staying in this and you're comfortable within yourself. You've got that self-awareness to fight for yourself and for the relationship. And then there's people who are, constantly going, what am I doing wrong? Taking too much responsibility.
Yes.
There's the 100% responsibility, but then there's the 100% responsibility
of the other person.
Of the other person where it's like, it's my fault.
Yes.
What do you need to do? And I've heard also that can be frustrating as well of like, what can I do for you? And it's me who's wrong. And it's, like, have you had situations like that before? Maybe not with each other, but with couples that you've heard about before where.
Definitely. And I mean, I in the past identified as a strong woman, and that's how I was raised, and I was raised from that generation, and I was also raised from a line of very strong women, which I love. And once I had a daughter myself, I did not want to pass that survival mechanism onto her because let's be honest, it's survival. And it wasn't until I had my daughter that I really realized that why do we go on about this strength as if it's a noble thing when the truth is I have never met a strong woman who has not had to be strong because of what she has been through. So
It's exhausting.
that is the truth. She is exhausted.
But it
She
is
is
survival.
resentful. It is survival. She doesn't feel safe. She doesn't feel supported. That's why she's strong. And for me, once I had my daughter, I was like, no, like this stops with me. I do not want to pass this on to her. And so that meant healing my relationship with that. And it really shifted to more like brave. And to me, brave, you're able to be vulnerable as well as have some qualities of strength. So, you know, with our situation and when I'm working with clients, sometimes there are women who we do, because of the way we're raised, we tend to overcompensate and care too much and overgive and do all of those things. And in the past, I was guilty of that as well. And so I really had to learn how to take better care of myself, how to meet my own needs, how to stop abandoning and neglecting myself. And I think, and appreciating myself, you know, I think it really starts with self, giving yourself all of those ingredients so that you can show up and you can support your partner, but you're not. I knew in that moment I could not give Adam any amount of love, any amount of appreciation, any amount of care or support that would fill this hole that was within him, because he had not been giving himself that. I knew that. And I think you need to be able to discern and see that. You can support a partner, but if they haven't been doing the work, if they, you know, like if they answer that question, they don't love themselves, they don't make themselves happy, you see that they're not meeting their needs, like Adam wasn't meeting his needs at that time, then they will most likely try and compensate for that by getting the needs met through you. And the most loving thing you can do is to not enable that. And that was, I think, the most loving thing I did for Adam was I didn't enable it anymore. Once I could see that, I told him, I remember saying to him, I'm going to be doing less around the house. And I'm telling you this so that you know I'm not being horrible. I'm not trying to create a problem, but I've realized I need to take better care of myself right now in what we're going through. So you're going to notice that things are not going to be at that standard of perfection that they had been for years.
And it's not in spite of you.
And it's not in spite of you. And that's what I said to him. I said, it's because I need to take better care of me. I'm letting go of some of the things in the house. It's still going to be at a standard that we can live in. But my standard had become so unrealistic. It wasn't, I couldn't even live up to that standard. And I wasn't happy as a mom, as a wife, you know, as a woman. So I had to choose myself. You know, I had to choose myself, take better care of myself. And Adam respected that decision. It was uncomfortable for him. He loved everything being done for him. And I remember I was having a conversation in the kitchen of him saying, like, I am losing so much right now. I'm seeing everything you've been doing, the load you've been holding, like for the first time, and like how good I've had it. And I feel like I'm losing so much. And I remember saying to him, you are, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to grieve. And I don't feel guilty because I know this is the right decision, not just for me, but for you and our family. And so I think through being the example, I think you need to be the example that you want your partner to be. So rather than try and give them what they need, give yourself what you need and inspire them through your journey. Because Adam immediately saw me, your energy shifts so fast. When you choose yourself, your energy just changes, and you no longer have to be really, you know, I didn't have to enforce my boundaries anymore because my boundaries were very clear. I was teaching him how to treat me by how I was treating myself. I was showing him what I was available for by what I was available for with myself. I had more respect for myself. So he had more respect for me, you know. So I think that's how you do it. You show, you don't tell, you be the example, and you let it inspire them. I never at one point like tried to turn around and like say that I was right, he was wrong. I never got righteous. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I didn't get righteous. I got really humble. I was actually the complete opposite. And in that humility of meeting my own needs and being vulnerable and going on that journey, I remember him saying that he was just so inspired by how I was taking better care of myself, and that he realized he really needed to do the same for him. And then I just gave him permission. I just said, go for it. And whatever I can do to support that, I can and I will. But you have to decide to choose yourself. I can't do this for you. And it became, really clear for him then. So I think it's really important that we choose ourselves. And I've never felt like I've lost myself in this relationship. I think so many people feel like they lose themselves in relationships. Well, I think the deeper meaning or the deeper truth there is you didn't choose yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. This is your life. You have to choose yourself before you can let anyone else choose you, or you can choose anyone else.
Yeah.
You've got to be the first person you choose. Absolutely.
What a woman.
Yeah.
Can I get a round of applause,
Yeah.
please? All that work.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. And like you said, being an example as well
Yeah.
is you get to share that now and we get to hear that part of the journey, because I know it would have been difficult to feel isolated in that and still have to, show up for both of you as well. And then you're both in this journey together, but you're in this journey separately.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that you would, that would have been hard some of the times, but just knowing that shining light of where you want to get to, I suppose, is really important for the relationship and for what you want to create for your kids in the long run.
Yeah, it definitely is always a journey within a journey within a journey. Like, I just think that's the case for everybody. So I think it's just learning how to be okay with that, how to not make it wrong.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's that acceptance.
Yeah.
Can I accept it? And your ego won't want to.
Yeah.
Like, ever. So
It ain't gonna be easy.
don't ask your ego.
Yeah.
Ask a deeper part of yourself. Yeah.
And so I feel like I know you now. I feel like there's so much more. Like, let's face it, you've both had lives outside of that, and there's so much more to you both. But the work that you do with couples on the retreats, and then also with the online work that you do, because obviously it's not going to take a day where you go to a retreat and everything's solved. It's going to be the after work. There's going to be pain. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be triggers that show up, because in a good relationship, triggers show up, and you stay with each other through them.
Yeah.
What's your? I know that you've got a coffee catch up, and you've got a few simple things that people can kind of do. Simple, let's say simple, as a starting point for couples to refine themselves and refine each other within their relationship.
Yeah, definitely. So the coffee check-in was actually born out of our struggle because we weren't communicating. And Adam had a freeze response in his nervous system. I had a fight response. So you can imagine how our communication
What did that
went.
look like? Do you mind talking about what it looked like?
Definitely. So I would want to talk. I would want to talk about it. I'd want to solve it. Didn't matter if the argument happened right before bed. I wanted to get it sorted, and I just want to talk about it. Whereas for Adam, it was like he would shut down.
It felt unsafe in my body.
Yeah.
Because there had been so many instances of having conversations where they went on for way longer than what I wanted them to. And this is something we teach also, the differences in men and women and how much we speak. There's a lot of research on that. Men speak a lot less than women.
Yeah.
And so there was that, coupled with the fact that I had all these past experiences of not feeling safe and feeling attacked all the time. So conversation didn't feel good to me.
No.
And so I would stonewall, I'd shut down. I didn't want to talk. Aston would get louder to try and get me to open up.
I might be small, but
So it was just this
Sounds
vicious.
familiar.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the strong woman syndrome. I actually think that's what it is. That's how it comes out.
Well, and it is the gender, there's exceptions to the rule, but women tend to talk more because it's communication, it's emotion, there's the thought process. And for men, from what I hear, I've never been a man, but from having the conversations, is that it's a matter of fact. This is the problem. Here's what I think the solution is.
Yep.
The frustration of why can't I get to that point? So I fully understand it. I can imagine people would be, resonating with that.
Yes.
Keep talking us through how you went with that and then how you overcame it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to that, but I just wanted to say, on average, men speak about 7,000 words a day. Women speak about 27,000 or more.
I'm
So you
sure
look at
I
that,
speak more than that.
And we hear couples they can't believe it when
can't
I
believe
share
it.
that at retreats.
Yeah.
It's a massive difference, and a lot of the time couples are fighting over that difference. They're fighting over the fact that the man speaks less or she speaks too much. It's a fundamental difference. It's the way our brains are wired. Women feel better when they speak. Their oxytocin gets released in their body. They feel really good. That's why they're always laughing and smiling, and they talk more and more and more. The more when you see a group of women get together, they're all bouncing off each other and they're talking more and more. For men, it's all about a goal. It's about achieving something. It's about getting to a resolution. So you can see how that needs to be quick. It needs to be direct. So it's a completely different goal.
Different goal.
So we need to understand that, and that can dissolve a lot of arguments
Yeah.
in our communication.
I hear often in the work that we get to do with friends who are going through challenges that the partner constantly says, the man will be like, you never listened to me. Maybe if you just listened.
Yeah.
Maybe if you just listened.
Yeah.
And that you just blew my mind.
Yeah.
That's not just a
There's-
small
Yeah.
Yeah.
change and a difference. And like, the book I remember when I was growing up was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Jupiter,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I don't know if I've nailed that,
Yeah,
Venus.
Venus, yeah.
And that the understanding that men are different to women.
100%. Yes.
The logic, the understanding, the communication.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you hear that are different? Not just the way that men communicate and women communicate. What are some other barriers that get in the way?
So many. And
Yeah, there's
there is a lot of
hundreds.
differences, but they are designed to work together. And
Yeah.
I think because we're never taught the differences, even in schools, I know they do sex ed, but there's a lot before that we don't talk about. I know they talk about consent, but even before consent, there's a lot before that.
Yeah.
I don't know why we miss all the other
The
chapters.
courting,
the whole point.
the love.
Yeah,
the
but even
yeah.
communication and the differences in men and women and how do we feel connection, emotional safety in your there's so much that we miss that we're not taught, and apparently we're meant to learn indirectly. But our parents don't sit us down and have those conversations
Well,
either.
they don't
'cause
even know.
They don't
either.
even know.
Yeah.
So then that is part of the problem. And we talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy as well because we need the different energies. But another really big difference is around connection and how men and women feel connection. And we hear a lot about how men want more intimacy in the relationship, and that's physical intimacy usually and then men get a bad rap that they're chauvinistic and all these horrible things. But the truth is, for a man, most men in general feel more connected when we're in proximity, when we're touching, when our bodies are close, when we're physically connected, they will feel more connected to you. And you can see how when we work away from our partners, when we spend 8-9 hours a day away from each other, men are going to feel disconnected. They won't have the word for it, but they will come home and what they want to connect with you. And that's going to probably be hug you or physically be close to you. Whereas the woman is likely, if you're like me, a mum, or you're working from home, or you're juggling corporate working and children, you're probably feeling touched out by the end of the day. When your partner comes home, you just want to put a bubble around you and say, nobody touch me. You might even feel like if you're breastfeeding and things like that, your body isn't even your own, and your partner's trying to touch you and get close to you, and you're thinking, God, he's unbelievable. Can't he see what I'm doing? How selfish, etc. Because for a woman, connection is more about where are we at in the relationship? Are we communicating? Are we on the same page? Are we listening to each other? Are we spending quality time together? Do I feel emotionally connected to you? If there isn't an emotional connection, if there's emotional distance, the woman's whole body will close up. She does not feel safe to open her physical body to you if you haven't opened your heart and your emotions to her. So a lot of couples do not realize this, and in a lot of men's defense, they haven't been taught that they need to provide emotional intelligence and connection in the relationship. And this is probably the biggest profound shift that we have at our one-day retreats. We show couples how to do it. So they do a eye-gazing connection practice that we layer over with intentions and mantras so that they feel connected, but there is no verbal communication. So they're sitting really close, they are touching, so the men feel physically connected, they're looking into each other's eyes, and we're repeating these mantras of connection. And they have to feel the mantra internally in themselves and send it to their partner. The shift in the room, it's palpable. Any photographers that we've had there, any content creators, they all cry. They say that shift in the room when you feel the connection, and they see each other in a way they have not seen each other in years. We've had couples say to us, I've been with my partner 26 years. I did not think that a connection this deep was possible after 26 years
Mm-hmm.
because they've done all the other stuff on the surface, but they haven't had that emotional safety and that deeper connection.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear from the women, I saw my husband in a different light. I saw a part of him I have not ever seen. And they see like that deeper level, their heart, their soul, like they let go of all the labels. They see past the labels, see into their heart of who they really are. Very often after a retreat, couples will be intimate and have the best connection they've ever had in their life.
And how great is
And
that? That solves world problems.
does.
You know what I mean?
And they're always like, how did that happen? And it's
Mm.
because we've created that, we've shown them how to create that level of connection where they can actually meet,
Yeah.
where his needs are met and so are yours. And
Mm-hmm.
with every single difference in masculine and feminine, in men and women, that's what we're trying to show. We're trying to show that they're not in competition. And I know logically when you look at them on the surface, it looks like, oh, well, obviously I like to speak. You know, it's very obvious. He doesn't really like to speak. So how can that possibly work? There are ways to make it work. And your differences actually attracted you to each other. Like I said in the beginning, his deep listening was so attractive to me. The way I stood in my truth was so attractive to him because they were our wounds we needed to heal.
Yeah.
Mine was I felt misunderstood and unheard. He helped me heal that wound. His was that he didn't feel like he could express himself and be in his truth. I helped him heal that wound because I triggered the opposite.
Mm.
And this is what I think so many people miss, is that your relationship is the spiritual initiation now. If you are in a relationship, even if you're in a relationship with yourself, you are on a spiritual journey. I don't care who you are. People say to me all the time, I'm not spiritual. I'm not on the path. Yes, you are.
Welcome.
You
Welcome.
are absolutely
You are
on the path because you're in a relationship with yourself
Mm.
and that in itself is an initiation.
Mm.
And then, you know, with your partner, again, that's an initiation and it's happening to help you grow, to heal. You know, trigger equals truth and your partner is that mirror of that. So if you're listening, like I just want you to know that all those differences that you're getting frustrated about, try instead of getting furious, get curious. I remember thinking, how could these be working together? If I believed he had a good intention, what could that good intention be? What if this was happening for a good reason? Because we just so often think it's wrong and bad, and then that stops the solution. Like we can't find a solution. But if you can get curious, you can get open. And that's my favorite part of the retreat. When I see them reconnect on that deeper level, it is just incredible. It's so healing to be in the room, to see men and women meet each other in their differences with no words spoken at all. It's just energy and just intention. And it's, I would say, 10 times more powerful than words. It's incredible. And yeah, I mean, that eye-gazing practice is very popular, but also then our coffee check-in is very popular. It actually went viral. That was actually born.
Are we able to,
Yeah,
so we can give
definitely.
it to the, so
Definitely.
Absolutely.
we'll put it in the
yeah,
show
you can
notes.
have it in the show
100%.
notes, definitely, and definitely use it. It's definitely going to help you with your communication.
We could keep going. And I feel like actually we're going to have a part two
Part
because
two.
I've got so much more I'd love to speak to you about, you know, where all the perceptions that have come from and the conversations that you find yourself having after people have reconnected with themselves and, you know, where you guys are going with your the business and also, you know, working with people who are single and so much more.
So much.
There will be a part two.
Part two coming.
Yep.
It has been absolutely amazing. I so appreciate the work that you've done to be able to get here, the experiences that you've had to shape you and the challenges and yourself as well is, you know, being so willing to feel all that discomfort, go through that grief and then still come together because it's such a blessing for the world to be able to see. I can't wait for people to listen to this and just thank you for making time. I know you've got more retreats. Where can people find you? Keeping in mind that this, you know, like is going to be an endless podcast. There's no particular date it will come out. So where can people find you to get in touch, to ask you questions and then also to work with you?
Amazing. Well, first of all, thank you for having us. Thanks for the
thank
platform.
you so
and
much. Yeah,
we really
it's
appreciate it. We love
absolutely
getting this message out there and, you know, it's people like you that enable us to spread our message. So thank you for having us on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
For people that want to find out about us, it's just savebymarriageschool.com, Aston _ Simmonds, Adam _ Simmonds. everything's there on the website. So
Yeah, and come and follow us on Instagram. Ask us questions. We're very open book. If we can direct you to a resource or something that can help, we really are open, and we are really passionate about this mission, about helping couples reconnect and rise together, and not just for them, not just healing generational patterns. That in itself is huge, but really passing that on to our kids. And I think the world really needs it right now. It really needs couples rising together and really learning how to work within our differences. I really do believe we're better together. I really, really do. And I think it's important that we remember that, and that we start embodying that, not just for us, but, for our children as well. I think it's really important.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to all of that. Thank you all so much for listening in today. I know that there are so many nuggets from that. Probably you've had to stop and pause and write it down. If you've taken something out of today's episode and you feel like there's somebody who could value this work, or there's a message that you've heard from today that you want to share, I'd love for you to share it. If you have any questions, any input, maybe an experience that you've had that you'd like to speak to Aston and Adam about, or myself, and put you in touch, they're definitely going to be a part of the ecosystem, and we'll definitely have them on again. So thank you so much for listening to the Resource Podcast. We're making a ripple effect, making huge waves from these conversations. Enjoy, share, and thank you.